Hey, welcome to a new episode of What Are You Selling with me, David Green. And with me today, I am delighted to be joined by the author of the Incarn Saga, Katharine Wibell. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. How about yourself?
Very, very good. Thank you. Very good. Just as we started talking, I hope you can't hear it, but someone has decided to start drilling outside of my house.
I
It's
cannot
not,
hear it, so don't worry.
like it's been silent for like the last couple of hours, and then just as soon as I hit record, it was like, well, let's start doing some work.
Timing is everything.
Yeah, there must be like a little, like there must be a red light or something on the side of my house that starts flashing when I'm recording, and people are like, well, it's time to make some noise.
Of course. I mean, that's the only way.
I'd say that is quite an impressive display of weaponry that you have behind you as well.
Oh, yes. I do collect, since I write fantasy, I love the concept of learning medieval warfare. And I used to be an archer when I was growing up in high school and was competitive all the way to a national level. But since then, been collecting recreation weapons of Viking culture because I do incorporate and actually have one series that focuses on Viking style, so Nordic mythology.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very nice. And is that a shield there as well that you have?
Yes, and actually that was during COVID, my project to keep myself entertained as I built myself a round shield.
Excellent.
Everybody needs a hobby.
Yeah. So I was just thinking that you may have just bought it, but you built it yourself. That's
Yes,
amazing.
sir. Yep, we
Excellent.
had to learn all the different stages and how to maneuver different kind of leather and watch someone kind of demonstrate welding. So yeah, it's been a fun project.
There you go. So for anyone who's watching, what did you do during lockdown? I bet you didn't. There's not many people that made a shield. And for those people that are at home that are watching or are listening on either on Spotify or Apple Music or watch on YouTube, if this is your first time on the channel, please subscribe to us and go check out all the other things that we have on the channel too. We have other author interviews, we have live readings, we have the Wheel of Time show, Ease in the Reader as well. So please do check those out. So, Catherine, you just mentioned then as well that you have many series,
Yes, I have three at current.
three at
One
current.
is yes, one is fully a complete series, and that was my debut series, the Incarn Saga, which you kind of introduced me with. And that has 4 books, and it's based in a kingdom called Alasia, where both the ruling class, which is the humans, and the native race, which are known as therimorphs, and they're actually a shapeshifter race, kind of begrudgingly live side by side in the kingdom. And the story kicks off when a third party comes to the kingdom, starting to decimate the seaside villages. A draft is called, and my main character, Ueva, at the age of 17, responds to the draft and goes to find her essentially dark destiny throughout the 4 books. She herself is a therimorph, which was really kind of fun for me to start off with a main character who is not human and trying to get into a mind of part beast as I wrote her.
Yeah. And two different kinds of people living reluctantly side by side is always fun to write about.
Oh yes, because obviously they have a unpleasant backstory of the why they dislike each other. Mainly the humans conquered the therimorphs, but surprisingly, instead of enslaving the other race, they were decreed equal in the letter of the law, though the hate from all these centuries of warfare is still there. They distrust, dislike, and there's a huge amount of pressure for the shifters to conform to human standards. So
Right.
there's already a lot of distrust and dislike between them from the get-go.
Okay, excellent. And what are your other series that you have as well?
Okay, right now I don't know why I decided to do this, release 2 simultaneously.
I
One
did
is
the
a young,
same. I've done that too. Yeah, I'm doing that right at the moment. It's madness. Why do we do it?
I know, and though they both fall under higher epic fantasy, they're very different. The Jed Chronicles is my young adult adventure fantasy series, and it's set in a multiverse that contains 12 magical planets. And ever since the dawn of time, there's been periodic threats to existence itself. And during those moments of crises, a hero would arise from an obscure planet, one that actually doesn't contain magic, and is there to kind of help maintain this balance, this kind of universal equilibrium, as they call it. in hopes that existence can continue on. So at the beginning of that series, my main character, her name is Katie of Earth, and she arrives on a world not Earth and has no idea of any of these other worlds or magic or any of those concepts, and is quickly told that she potentially is this next Jed, this prophesized hero. And the first book, The 12 Tasks, kind of explains the kind of end game for that particular book is she has to go through a series of testing to prove that she is or is not this next hero. And if she is, then this means this great crisis is on the horizon. So that's how that series kicks off. And again, that's for young adults, and it's been a lot of fun working with that one. And the latest book, its sequel, The Vagarian Sire, actually released in December. So that was my newest release. So I have 2 of those out. There should be about 9 in all in the end.
Just the 9.
Just the 9 in that one. My other series is actually a rapid release novella series for adults, and it's called The Guardian Speaker, and it's based directly from Norse mythology. And so it's a lot darker, grittier. I mean, Nordic mythology, if anybody knows about it, is not the most cheerful of subjects. But instead of trying to go into the Yggdrasil, which is their universe with the 9 realms and all their worlds and the gods that people may or may not recognize through things like Thor and Loki and Odin, I'm actually approaching it through far more obscure references to Nordic myth. So my main character actually is from a humble little seaside village, and she was born with an ability to see what are known as Fulgir, and they are essentially people's guardians angels, but they take animal forms and are supposed to be invisible, but they help you along your life. And because she was born with the ability to see them, most of society thinks she's insane because she talks to herself because she's talking to her own personal Fulgia. And so she's been ostracized and shunned. So she's a very neat personality versus my other 2 main characters, which are the warrior type woman. But through her, you go through this epic adventure throughout the 9 realms. And it kicks off because she bumps into another person who has a similar ability to her. But because of his ability, he also understands there's a threat upon humanity where all the humans are dying off. And he may be the only one to solve it through his gift. But the problem is he's brought in as a slave and he's not hers to free. So that one kicks off that series. And those are novellas.
Right. So what was it that drew you to Norse mythology then? Because I've obviously being European, I'm quite, I'm living in England. We have while I used to live in England, live in Ireland now. We were exposed to a lot of kind of North mythology in general, because it's around us a lot of the time as well. From days when the Vikings used to invade us quite a lot.
Yes, yes.
And even in Ireland as well. Actually, there's a big Viking museum in Dublin. So we kind of like see it quite a lot. We grow up with it and what have you. And I'm always kind of fascinated when people from the States and further afield get that kind of love of it as well. So what is it that drew you to that kind of the Norse mythology?
That was, I guess it's not necessarily a direct route. Ever since I was a child, I was drawn to just any kind of mythology. And obviously growing up, you get the Greco-Roman pretty early on, you get ancient Egypt fairly early on. And as I got older, I would read about different world myths throughout the globe and expand upon that. And then the other side of things is I am Swedish through my dad's lineage. My grandfather came over from Sweden when he was a child. So getting older and starting to become more interested about that line of my family. And then of course that culture and going back, it kind of interwove together and almost an obsession now based on my, but yeah, I have a whole, I have a full section of my personal library just dedicated to anything from Icelandic sagas and the Eddas and history books about that era and the people and that culture. So it's, for me, it was very fascinating. And Nordic myth lore or verbiage has wound its way in all 3 of my series at current. And of course, the Guardian Speaker is solely Norse mythology.
Yeah, excellent. And do you have like a favorite Norse god or story or anything like that?
Oh my, there's a lot of like small lore and myths, again, kind of like the concept of the Fulgia, which when I discover things that I haven't heard before, fascinate me.
Right.
But unfortunately, I might be a little cliche. I really do like Loki, not for the way most people would probably jump off the cuff and think. It's just because for me, he's the most dimensional of the gods, and his story arc, because he actually does have kind of an interesting story arc, is that perfect story arc for that character that could have been good, but gets forced, unfortunately, to become like the big villain in the end. And with Ragnarok and the original story, he does get his vengeance in a roundabout way. So I think he's probably very interesting, and so I would choose him.
Yeah. Because we were talking, it's funny how it does influence so much stuff, particularly fantasy. Because we were talking a little bit about before we started recording about Wheel of Time, and that obviously has huge. I mean, it has a lot of mythological influence from the real world, anyway. But especially in the Norse one as well, which a lot of people don't really pick up on when they first start reading it. But like the main characters, especially the male main characters, are quite heavily influenced by Norse gods themselves as well.
Yeah, no, I've only started reading that series at the end of last year, so I'm very early on in it, but I've picked up on some of those trends too.
You would do, yeah. From your weapon collection, I would say that you definitely did straight away. So your first book in the Incarn series came out in 2016?
Yes, that's Sara's Claws, yes.
Yeah. So did you just start writing just before that, or were you writing for a while before that?
That one, nothing's easy, I will say. No, interestingly enough, one of my other series, the young adult one I'm putting out now, the Jed Chronicles, was the reason why I wanted to become a writer. It's actually a lot of the characters and worlds that is incorporated in that series was based off my imaginary play with my sister when we were children. And so I always wanted to share those concepts, those characters, this magnificent multiverse that we developed to other people, and knew I wanted to write, but never dared attempt really getting into it until I was right about to start college and had this very vivid dream that I just had to start putting to paper. And as soon as I did that, the characters came alive and the world came alive and the storyline came alive almost all at once. And so that's how the Incarn Saga and Asara's Claws kicked off. And I chose that one to write first. Had to put it on a hiatus, obviously, for the 4 years that I was going through college. But it took from conception to publication about 10 years. Me stumbling through the whole indie publishing world and learning everything probably far slower than the average person. So it took me a long time to get that first book out to the world. But since then, I mean, last year I released 4 novellas and a full length. So I've picked up speed and figured out a pace and have now navigated it enough where it gets easier for anybody who's interested in writing, in publishing and indie. It gets easier.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I noticed looking through your bibliography that you've got like box sets and you've got this kind of stuff, and that is something that for anyone that's watching and that are interested in getting into the kind of writing world, that especially with indie publishing, that box sets and getting that set out, and then you've got that click through from other things, is something that you want to try and get to as quickly as possible, really. Which no one told me either when I first started, and I was like, maybe I'll do like 1 a year. Maybe I'll do 2 series at the same time, 1 of each. And it's like, no, you need to get that series done. Like,
yes.
Quick.
Yes, it's always nice because readers are voracious and they can go through something. It's like heartbreaking almost for an author because you work so long on a book and they can read it in maybe a matter of hours sometimes. Yeah. And you're like, you don't understand how many potentially years I spent to work on this. Yeah, they're ready for more right away. So
yeah, it's that. I mean, it is a compliment when they say, I did this in one sitting, and it's like, I spent a year working on that.
Yep.
Right. Well, I mean, you'd rather take one sitting than it took them 7 months to get through it, I suppose. But yeah, it's funny the way that works. So, what is next for you? I mean, you said that you've got, like, you know, this one of these series, you have 9 books in it. You've got 2 so far, and you've got your novella series. I was going to say what's next year, but we are in 2022 now. So what is up for you for the rest of this year?
This year, my goal, and we will see if I achieve it. It's a grand goal. I don't know. Would be to release another 4 of the novella series, because that one is going to be a very long series. I mean, the novellas are short, so it's a nice way to break it up. And though there'll be a high number, probably between 14, 16, there are quick reads. But hoping to put 4 more of those out, and another full length to go with my other series, the Jed Chronicles. And in between, take a breath. In between, I'm hoping to release, I'm planning to release my first audiobook for Asara's Claws. And that's a really exciting thing, because I'm working with a full cast of voice actors. So it'll be kind of like that old radio style with sound effects, and each character having their own actor or actress. So that's exciting. And then going along with the box sets, anytime I hit that 4 grouping mark, I'm going to put another, online box sets, and along with some hardbacks. So putting a lot out this year. We will see what I can actually achieve. But like I said, I have a very lofty goal, a very rigid writing schedule for me this year.
Right. And that's how you prefer it, is it to have that kind of schedule?
Oh, I'm definitely schedule oriented, and obviously like to challenge myself maybe a little too much, because sometimes I can hear my editors or betas kind of in the background being like, slow down. we can't go that fast. But I am definitely trying to achieve a lot in the next couple of years. Again, going back to the concept of, you want to have a lot of books out there for readers, and maybe down the line they could slightly slow it down a little bit once I feel satisfied with the plethora of offerings, but we will see.
Yeah, excellent. So where is the best place to find you and to keep up to date with all of these many, many, many books that you've got coming out?
Well, right now I am, you can find any of my books on Amazon. They're on Kindle, print. Like I said, going forward, you'll start seeing hardbacks and audio through them. I'm also on KDP, so the KU people can read there. As for me and following my work, most of my socials are linked to my website, and that is, I'll say it out because my name is a little odd, but that's Katharine, Katharine, Wibell, and that's spelled W, I as in ink, B as in boy, ELL, books.com. So Katharine Wibell Books. And on social media, I'm Katharine E. Wibell or Katharine Wibell, and pretty much on any social media you can think of, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc., so on, you can find me.
Excellent. And all of those links will be in the show notes below. So for anyone who's still listening and watching, those notes are all there. So do please click through and check them out. I was looking at I've not had the chance to read your work yet, but I was looking at your reviews for all your work, and they're also like consistently great.
Oh, well, thank you. That's the goal.
Yeah, so definitely go check them out, and it sounds like you've got something for everyone as well, which is a great thing to have.
I like the idea, because I think fantasy should be for everyone, so something for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Katharine, thank you so much for coming on, and you have to come and talk to us again at the end of the year and let us know if you achieve your goals. And for everyone who's watched to the end, thanks very much, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.